McVeigh meets. Looks like we're about to go again. And here we go. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining me for another episode of McVeigh Meets. My name's Paul McVeigh. I'm a keynote speaker and former professional footballer. So thanks for joining us. If you're joining us on Instagram Live, Facebook, Twitter, or you're on the YouTube channel, delighted you've been with us today. And if you watched yesterday, we have speaking with writer and actor Ralph Little, who was fantastic. So anyone joining me for the first time, you should just know why I'm doing this, because I feel a little bit helpless that I can't do anything for the bigger picture in terms of raising money for the COVID-19 scenario. So I thought if I could just speak to some people who I hugely respect, think they've done unbelievably well in their lives and their careers, try and raise a bit of money for the NHS, then I thought that could be a really good thing to do. So that leads me nicely into my today's guest. And my today's guest is a man who, wait to hear this, for a list of clubs on a CV. Started off at Luton Town, went to Arsenal, West Ham, Wimbledon, Coventry, Celtic, West Brom, my beloved Norwich City, and represented Wales at every level. So delighted to say John Hartson is joining me. John, how you doing, big man?
I'm very well, Paul. Thank you. It's a pleasure coming on, mate. No worries at all.
Yeah, really, really, honestly do appreciate having you, because this is such a strange time, and you just saying that you just finished another call with Manchester United, and can you give us a wee bit of that before we go into this kind of stuff we're going to talk about today?
Yeah, what it was, a good friend of mine, Neil Ryan. I was an apprentice with Neil at Luton. We were kids together, 16 coming through, and he went on. He didn't quite make it as a professional footballer like I did. But he went on into the coaching side of things. He's a great lad. We've always stayed in touch, that group of players, because we bonded together for 2 years as young apprentices, all living in digs. And it was a brilliant time at Luton. You become a man overnight, really. You're staying in digs with a nice family, and you have to make your way into the ground every day. So Neil was a great friend, but unfortunately he never made it, in his football career. Went straight into coaching and did very well, and he's now the Manchester United under-18s academy manager. And a guy called Neil Fox as well, who was another part of the academy there, and Nicky Butt as well was in on the a WebEx call, and it was 30 players, the under-23s and the under-18s. A young lad called Charlie Savage, Robbie Savage's son, is currently in the under-18s at Man United. So they were all in this sort of call, and it was like a Q&A. It was like, going through my career, what makes a difference between getting to the high level and just, being ordinary, or what did it take? And, I'd come through a little bit of adversity as well, during my life, and coming through the cancer and the gambling addiction and, the divorce and everything else that, life is a challenge, mate, and it tests everybody, doesn't it? So I've got a bit of a story to tell with everything else that went on, and some of the football clubs and the career that I had. So we just went through it. It went on for a bit longer than I expected, but it was great. It was fascinating, and I think they enjoyed it.
Great, brilliant to hear. Listen, big man, I'm just getting a few messages on Instagram that your phone's just slightly down, so they can't see your face. Now, I'm not saying you're the best looking guy
But they
in the
want to
world,
see my face.
but they want to see the money maker. You know what I mean? They want to see what gets you all those modeling deals over the years.
Not told me that, made me look a fool, couldn't you?
No. But here, listen, it's fascinating what you're saying there about the journey that you've had all through your career, and that's one of the things I kind of wanted to touch on whenever I'm speaking to all these people. I've been really lucky to get some incredibly high level guests and very successful people, and I suppose one of the first things I was just going to touch on in terms of your starting off at Luton Town, what kind of mindset did you have when you were at Luton? Because obviously you went on and you were the most expensive teenager to go to Arsenal at that time, but did you think, yeah, I deserve to be here? Kind of almost like the way Cantona was when he walked into United, or was it a bit like, oh, I don't think this is for me, and I think I've gone a bit too far?
Well, I think first and foremost, I was a young teenager running around Swansea playing local football, and I had an opportunity to go to Luton at 16 to do an apprenticeship and a YTS scheme, if you like. That's what they called it back then.
Yeah,
And
apprenticeship.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, an apprenticeship. You know, it was a bit different then. It was what 20 something years ago, where the players used to be allocated with the first team player. You know, you have to clean that first team player's boots. You have to clean the stand, go around the dressing room, clean the showers, clean the baths, and the youth team coach almost used to go like that above the, the little peg at the in the first team dress and see if he could get any dust. It was, it was a lot more stricter, and the players, the young apprentices, used to have a lot more um, sort of things to do in terms of what your requirements were as a YTS. On a YTS scheme, £29.50, that's what it was. But it was a fantastic grounding for me. Um, as I said, I moved in with a family who I'm still very much in contact with. They became almost like my second parents, and they didn't have the luxury of taking me into training every day. I lived about 10 miles in a place called Stopsley near Luton,
Yeah, I know it.
not
I
far
know
from the airport. And I used to have to get the bus into training, which was two buses, and then it was quite a walk for about half a mile or something up to the training ground. Sometimes when one of the lads had passed their test, if you'd be lucky, would have about four or five of us just crammed into this car, hoping that you'd get a lift off one of the boys. So that for me was that for me was somebody phoning there. So somebody's just phoned my mobile, but we can still carry on here, can we? Yeah, somebody just phoned my mobile there.
it.
So
Okay,
that's where we
okay,
cut
no
off.
problem. No worries,
Yeah,
no
so
worries.
that was a fantastic grounding, a really good opportunity for me. You almost have to become a man
Yeah,
overnight, and have them responsibilities of, I'm got your parents cooking your meals for you. You haven't got your mum and dad, to mourn to, or to get the luxuries, But you have to get yourself into the training ground on your own. You have to keep your £30 a week. You have to balance that, getting all your luxuries yourself. Like, if you're going to go out for a meal one night, or if you're going to go to the bowling, it has to last you a week. It's not a lot of money, but at 16, it's better than what I was getting anyway at
yeah,
Swansea before I was got to that age. But Luton was brilliant. I hold a special place in my heart for Luton Town Football Club. I still follow them now. And for me, it was a brilliant time. The apprentices there, and of course, then at 19, after only 50 appearances for Luton, I had that huge move to Arsenal, and that was quite big at the time because I was just a teenager.
yeah, and that's the thing because what was the kind of the thought? Did you think, yeah, I've always wanted to get to the top level in football, or did you think actually I'm surrounded by world class players and I don't belong here?
No, I never felt I didn't belong. I was actually very excited about being there. And remember, there was some superstars in that team.
Who
Dennis.
was there? What other
Well,
players?
the players that were there were Ian Wright, Paul Merson, Ray Parlour, and the England back four basically. It
Best
was
of the best.
Yeah, it was Lee Dixon, Tony Adams, Martin Keown, Bold, Winterburn, Selly, Parlour, Jensen, Limpar,
The Madonna the
Schwartz,
Carlton. Yeah.
and then obviously we brought Dennis Bergkamp into the club. Dennis was a
Yeah.
magnificent player, and I really enjoyed my time at Arsenal. It was only short; it was only 2 years, but I played with some great players. I played under two brilliant managers, George Graham and Arsene Wenger. Played in two European finals at 20 years of age. I played in the Super Cup final and the Cup Winners' Cup final. So I was only
Amazing.
20, and so that was a wonderful time. But what happened was when Bergkamp came to the club, I found my game time not as much as I would have liked, because Righty and Dennis, they formed an unbelievable partnership. They were two of the best at the time. Righty was the
Yeah.
England centre forward, and of course Dennis Bergkamp was the Dutch legend. But there
Yeah.
was a time when me and Righty, several games we played up top, and Bergkamp played in the hall. And I'd Harry Redknapp on the phone, the West Ham manager, and
Always.
Harry can be quite convincing, and
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
he wants something, he generally gets it. And he wanted to
Yeah.
take me to West Ham, and he said to me that he'd build his team around me. He had some great young players coming through, hence Rio, Michael Carrick, Joe Cole, Frank Lampard, all these young players, great players coming through, and they had some very good players as well. So um, it was a short stint at Arsenal, only 2 years, and then I ended up going to West Ham for 3.2 million, which was a record. It was, West Ham had never spent that money on a player before, and I had a wonderful 18 months, and I had a little bit of a dour sort of 6 or 7 months when I had
Hmm.
that training ground incident, which I'm
Yeah,
not proud of.
yeah,
I
yeah.
always say to people, it can almost take you a lifetime, a career to build up a reputation,
Hmm.
and then it can take you 4 seconds to spoil it.
Yeah,
Or to
yeah,
put a stain on it, if you
yeah,
like.
yeah, yeah.
Although it happened, and I've spoken about it many a times. I always felt that incident slightly went before me. I was
Hmm.
21 years of age, and even to today, I wonder, well, why did I react the way that I did?
Yeah, yeah.
Because although I was aggressive and I liked the physical side of the game, that's something that I never elbowed people off the ball or went over the top. I was just naturally, I like
Hmm.
the physical
Yeah,
side of the game.
yeah.
But West Ham was brilliant. Again, Ian Dowie, I was playing with Downer, Keith Rowland, Michael Hughes, a few of the Irish boys.
Yeah.
Lomi was brilliant. John Moncur, Bish, all characters. Paul Kitson as well. So I had a great time working with Harry at West Ham.
Do you know what? It's amazing because when you think about such a young man and you'd already accomplished so much in your career by 21, and you're almost thinking like, where else do you go? But can you give us some of the things that maybe people and fans who would have been around Arsenal or West Ham at that time just might not know? Maybe some of the stories that might have happened that didn't always get into the papers.
Well, most of the stuff that happened did get into the papers, but that was the problem. But it was different then, Paul, wasn't it? We're talking 25 years ago,
Yeah.
1995. I signed for Arsenal. 25 years ago that was. Where did the years go? Um, and the thing was then there was no social media. There,
Yeah.
there was none of that. Like today, you can't go anywhere. Everyone's like that, aren't they?
Yeah.
You know.
Absolutely.
And I'm like, mate, if you just ask me nicely, you could take a photo. You don't have to
Yeah.
video me, you know what I mean? But
Yeah. Yeah.
no, but
Yeah.
obviously, there was a few episodes at Arsenal, and I think I think it's common knowledge. When I went there was a little bit of a drinking culture at the
Yeah.
football club at the time, and Tony Adams came out publicly and said that he was an alcoholic and he needed help, and I believe Tony hasn't had a drink since. So there was, but they were a great bunch of lads. Obviously, what happens in the dressing room, Paul, has to stay in the dressing room,
Of course.
unfortunately.
Of course.
But no, what I would say, there was a couple of nice liquid lunches that I used to get involved in and things like that. But and at that particular time, it probably took Arsene Wenger to come in and to go a different way, different culture, and you listen to the likes of Merce and Tony Adams and a few of the older guys at the time who were about 31, 32, already legends at the club. They kicked on, and they say themselves with the diet, with the training, everything was done on time. It became a lot more, I won't say more professional, because these guys had won a double. They'd done
Hmm.
extraordinary things under George Graham. So
Hmm.
take nothing away from that, but I think they were like an aging back four. But Arsene Wenger sort of fired a bit of life back into them, and in the Invincibles team, if you like, David Seaman, Ian Wright, and they'd say by tuning into what Arsene wanted them to do, and the way he wanted them to train and everything else, and by going with his methods, it gave everybody a lift. And as you say, they got an extra 2 or 3 years out of them, which they probably wouldn't have had if Arsene hadn't arrived.
Yeah, it's funny that you're never going to remember this because obviously you would have been playing in all the big games at the time, like you said, the European finals and stuff. But actually, whenever I was coming through the youth team at Spurs and get into in the reserves and had made a couple of appearances in the first team in the Premier League, but then the year after I just probably wasn't at the level to be able to play regularly in the first team. So we actually had a reserve game against Arsenal, and it was my only time I ever played at Highbury, and you were playing up front. And I think it was because Tony Adams must have been injured and he was coming back from injury, so he was playing as well. And obviously, as a 20-year-old kid playing against Tony Adams, you're thinking, this is a bit intimidating. But you know, it was a good game, and both Spurs and Arsenal had two good strong teams out, and I was playing up front. I would just remember going in for this 50-50 with Tony Adams. And I just thought, you know, he's going to look at me and he's going to look at I'm like a little, you know, wee small fry. So I think he's going to try and go high on me. But I thought, no way, I'm just going to go for the top on him. So I went high, he went even higher. We both kind of like smashed each other. And remember, like, kind of fell to the ground. And I was like really angry, really irate. And I get up and I was like, piss off, Adams. And he turned around and went, piss off, whatever your name is. I was just so embarrassed. You know, you're playing against a professional footballer. He has no idea who you are because, as you say, he's won doubles and captain England. And it was like, wow, this just kind of puts me in my place. And I think I really need to get
Well,
that first game level to know.
he was a great man, Tony. Not just was he captain, England captain, he was a tremendous leader of men. You know, and I always say, Paul, you know, you're doing a lot of talks now, inspirational talks about business and different topics and everything else, not just, you know, the familiar football stories and the innuendos about this, that, and the other. You actually deliver to, you know, to people, businesses and things like that. And it's not easy to lead.
Yeah.
People think it's easy to lead. Leading is not about grabbing somebody by the scruff of the neck or headbutting the dressing rooms when you're going out to play. That's not leading. I think leaders naturally just go and do it, and people follow their lead. And Tony was just a man that was born to lead. He was a man amongst men. That's what he was, like a Martin Johnson type figure,
Yeah.
you know, an Alan Shearer type, you know, a real leader of men. And when he spoke, people listened. You know, I remember in the Arsenal dressing room at Highbury, you know, Tony would bang on the door and he'd say, look, you know, this is our home, you know, and nobody comes here and wins here without a fight, you know. And all the lads, you know, George would be looking and all the lads with the hairs on the back of your neck would be standing up. He was so inspirational, even more so now, the way that he's gone about his life, and he's helped thousands of sports people with different problems. And we've all had problems. Everybody's got things that you know, that has happened to them and had to come through adversity. And what Tony has done in setting up the Sporting Chance Clinic, he's doing untold amounts of great work. And the admiration I have for him, not only from being my skipper as a young man, but what he's gone on to do, defeating, you know, he's clean, 25 years, you know, he was an alcoholic, he's not had a drink. And no, he's somebody that I have, you know, enormous respect for.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point because it's probably like you're saying that Tony Adams would have had issues like we all have issues and all have challenges and demons, but actually his were just front and center in the public eye, so everybody could see exactly what's happening to him and what was going wrong with him. So to come through that probably just shows the integrity, the mark of the man to be able to do it. And I suppose, John, the fact that you brought it up and you mentioned it at the start in terms of going through the cancer and the gambling addiction, etc. Are you okay to touch on that now before we go through all of the like Celtic
Of
and
course I
Wales?
am. Do you
Because
know
I
what, though,
really want to
Paul? I've
get to
not
that.
got much battery in my phone.
Okay.
We need to sort that out, do we?
If the phone dies, and that just means the Instagram live just cuts
We
off, but
just
that's
carry
not a
on
problem.
here.
We can carry on the laptop because it's all going on the YouTube channel, on the Facebook, Twitter. You can see it all another time, so not a problem if the phone dies.
Right.
Then
Okay. Well, we keep going on there
we
until it.
keep going. Yeah, absolutely,
Really.
absolutely. And so what you mentioned about Tony setting up the Sporting Chance Clinic, which is, as you say, is incredible feat to do. So did you use that whenever you decided that you wanted to get help for your gambling?
No, I didn't, Paul. I gambled for 20 years. I couldn't get out of it. I'm a recovering addict, former gambling addict, and I'm recovering. And I'm clean, 9 years clean. I am. I've not had a bet for 9 years,
Amazing,
and I go to
amazing.
GA now twice a week, and I wouldn't be in this beautiful home in Edinburgh if I didn't. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
I'd probably be in the gutter somewhere, or probably dead or in jail, if I continued to go the way I was going. You know, but I didn't get help, and that's why now. You know, I go around. I'm a ambassador for company Ladbrokes, RG, responsible gambling, and I don't tell people to stop gambling because they wouldn't listen anyway. I
yeah,
just tell them about from someone like myself. I remind them of the pitfalls, the potential dangers that they could face if they don't get a hold of themselves, and to gamble responsibly. That's what the GR stands for. And I'm proud to do that because I feel as if I'm giving something back, in terms of that. So, no, I gambled for a long time, and, it's open, it's out there, and I'm not at a bet. I go to GA twice a week, Gamblers Anonymous, and I'm in a different place altogether
Brilliant.
now. So I never did use the sporting chance. It was only when I was about 35, 36, something personal happened in my life, and I decided that I was just going to stop. I was just tired. I was tired of being deceitful, and tired of letting myself down, letting everybody else down. So I just decided to go to GA, and I just wanted to stop. I didn't
Yeah.
want to live the life that I was living anymore. And through a little bit of self control and a lot of help from the fellowship in the groups, I've managed to keep myself clean, and I don't attend bookmakers anymore. I've got no accounts. I don't go to racetracks. I don't even, if the racing was on, I wouldn't be bothered. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I did it that way. I did it myself because ultimately you can have all the help in the world. If you don't want to stop, then you won't. But I
What
wanted to
what
stop.
Well, that kind of brings me on to the point of saying, well, actually, what happens if there are other people? So people could be tuning in from, and I know have been tuning all around the world to come and listen to some of the interviews we've done in the last few days. If you have someone listening to this who's thinking, I'm in the same situation you just talked about from all those years ago, what could you advise or help them to say, this is what I did, or what they should do at this point?
Well, first and foremost, I would never tell anybody to stop gambling. That is not my
Okay.
responsibility. That is not my thing. What I could do is I could advise them how I managed it as a recovering gambling addict for 20
Hmm.
years who gambled every day.
Hmm.
What I would say is, if you want to make a change in your life, you've got to come to that realization that you're no longer enjoying being the gambler, being the person, being the liar, being the deceitful, no good scumbag that you are, lying to your wife, losing all your money, feeling good, feeling bad, hiding things. It's really not a nice place to be in. Um, so you have to come to a decision at some stage to say, I'm tired of living this life. I am tired of being the way I am. And then there is help out there. For people who tell me there's no help, that's nonsense. There's a GA in every county, in every most villages and cities. You can find a GA sort of fellowship, a group, and the groups for me have helped me a lot. Some people say they don't work, um, and some people say they're fantastic. I still go to groups. I know a guy that in Swansea before I moved to Edinburgh, where I first started. He's been going for 26 years. And I said to him
Wow.
in one meeting, I said, why do you still come here? I said, you've been clean for 26 years. Well, why do you still come? Surely now you're on top of this addiction. And he looked at me stupid. He said, no. He said, John, I'm only 20 seconds away from my next bet. He said, that's why I come here. And he's right.
Yeah.
This thing can get you. It's like an alcoholic. An alcoholic probably can't walk into a pub again because of the potential, the smell of the alcohol, and it's not advisable. It's not advisable for me as a compulsive gambler to go to a racetrack. I could
Yeah.
say, well, I'll tell you what, I'll go in the box and I'll drink champagne. Why would I put myself in that environment of other gamblers around me? You know, so it's an addiction, and addictions are extremely difficult to break, to get on top of.
Yeah.
Addictions are really, really hard, and I respect everybody with an addiction because it came from somewhere. But there is a way out. There
Yeah.
is a way out, and I feel after a year, 2 years, you get it. You get it then, and I believe it gets easier from then because you've picked up so much knowledge. Um, you've heard so many stories in that fellowship, in that GA group. You're a way to go then, if you like. So that's what I would say to people. Anybody listening to this, um, for me, I just had enough. I wanted to
Brilliant.
stop being that. person that I was. And ultimately, if people are honest with themselves, they probably feel the same way, but they probably feel there's no way out. They might be in debt. Over time, you clear that
Mm.
debt. Um, Over time, that relationship that is ruined at the minute, you can rebuild that. But you've got to want to make that change. You know.
Yeah, it's absolutely fascinating listening to you, John, and just like the candidness and your honesty and openness, and I really do appreciate that. And I should just at this point just throw it out, just that anyone is joining us, because obviously people will see us streaming live across all the different social media profiles. That the reason why I'm doing this, I'm trying to raise some money for the NHS in the current situation. So if you do want to donate, just go onto my social media profiles on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, whatever,
Brilliant.
and donate on there. Or you can go on my Just Giving page and type in McVeigh Meets, and you can find my page there to donate, because we're nearly halfway to the target of £1,000. So, John, listen, I suppose before, because there's so much football stuff still to talk about, but I know I'm very conscious of your time because you've been up this morning on GMTV where you did that with Piers Morgan, and now you've got the Man United session, and I only want to keep you for another little bit longer. But whenever you talk about leadership, and that's, I think, when you're saying about getting yourself from being a gambling addict to out of that scenario, that for me takes so much leadership, because you're leading yourself, and it's not even about leading other people, it's just about you and you making that decision. But I suppose when it comes to something like cancer and your health, that's probably less of a decision and more of a it's happening no matter what.
Well, yeah. Well, I've spoken about this many times. When I was diagnosed with testicular cancer back in 2009, it was 11 years ago now. It just came as such a shock, because I trained every day of my life for
Yeah.
17, 18 years, and here I am in a hospital bed, um, having a brain operation to relieve stress from my brain, hemorrhage, and I had my head cut open there and at the back, and it just turns your whole world upside down. And when you're told you have cancer that spreads to your lungs and onto your brain, the immediate thought is that you're going to die, because cancer, it doesn't mess about. Cancer, it doesn't give anybody any it doesn't move over for nobody, if you like.
Yeah.
It steamrolls on. And as I said, when I got told, my initial thoughts were, Paul, was that I was going to die. Testicular cancer that spread, and it's on my brain. And so for the first 5 or 6 weeks, it was extremely worrying. I was in and out of theatre. In the brain operation, one there, one at the back. You're wondering whether you're going to come out of it fully recovered, or whether you're going to have brain damage or whatever. But these operations needed to happen for the whole thing to be a success. And then I started a chemotherapy program. I felt very, very weak. And one of the things that kept me growing was the support. Uh, the support generally from football teams. Even the Celtic family were unbelievable.
Yeah. Yeah.
With mail and letters and flowers and telegrams, everything. That the hospital in Swansea, they'd never seen anything like it. Every day there'd be sacks of mail and everything else. And even from football supporters, I have to say that some clubs that I played for had big rivals, and I had a lot of fan mail as well, and lots of goodwill messages from them clubs, which I think showed me that when people are struggling and when people are going through a bit of adversity, football is like secondary. And football to us all, that's all I know. Football is my world.
Yeah.
Football is my life. That's all I talk about. That's all I ever do. That's all I ever work for a living. But when you're really ill, everybody, sort of offers their hand, as if to say, there's more to life, than football. And I was fighting for my life, so it was overwhelming, the amount of support that I got, and it certainly helped me in terms
Hmm.
of reading a letter, or getting something that was to my wife in support, or being sent the Lance Armstrong book. It's not about the bike,
Yeah.
because Lance Armstrong had gone through testicular cancer that spread to his lungs, and his very, very similar symptoms. Um, so that wasn't a nice period, but it's been positive since. I've got through and I've got stronger, and I'm probably a better person, a better human being for that experience.
And it sounds like it, and you talk about all the different things of this that have happened to you, scenarios, situations, experiences in your life. And half the times I'm looking at my arms, sitting, seeing the goosebumps that I've got, and just listening to it. Never mind going through it and the experiences, and I suppose because obviously we both had a football background. One of the things that I'm really interested in, as you know, anyway, around the mindset and psychology, but do you think anything from your football and life and like almost like the skill set and mindset that you learned in football, did that help you with anything to do with your struggles in gambling and struggles with cancer?
Oh, definitely, because I had challenges in football, coach. That's gone off. Sorry, I'm really
Okay, no
apologise
worries
to
at all. We'll just end the Instagram live and we'll crack on with the rest of
gone off.
the stuff we're doing.
Everybody.
Go on.
Um, Football gave me huge challenges. I think you walk into a dressing room and you've got to make an impact. Your teammates have to get you involved in some way. You can only do that by being yourself and performing, I suppose, because you are judged ultimately. Yes, I was a decent human being, but you are judged on what you do on the pitch. So the challenges that I had to go through, going to Arsenal at 19, breaking into that team, going to Celtic, going to a different culture, going to a different country. I was playing in England for 10 years, and I have to go up to Glasgow. I'd only been to Scotland once in my life on a pre-season tour with West Ham. So you have to settle in, know the people, know the culture. Celtic is an enormous football club, a huge global club around the world, and I've all of a sudden got to get into the team, and I've got to, I know I'm going to be judged. So when I got diagnosed with cancer, I'm absolutely sure that some of the challenges that I faced on a football pitch, having to play that way that when I played, I was a big centre forward, I was a focal point, and every week I've got Razor Ruddock coming over the back of me, and I've got Dave Watson, and I've got Steve Bruce, and I've got
Yeah,
Pallister, and I've got
yeah,
Colin Hendry, and I've got all these, and I'm taking all the hammerings. So I had for little righty, they were just floating around playing on the outskirts and all. Never got injured, and Bellamy and all these guys. But I'm the one who's getting
yeah.
hammered every week. No wonder I had two back operations. But no, I'm sure all these challenges, Paul. I'm sure all these, this adversity going onto the pitch, um, would have certainly had a positive effect on me when I was battling cancer.
Yeah, and that's where it's so interesting when I see a lot of athletes coming out of these professional sporting careers now. And sometimes when you speak to them, they don't always realize just, I suppose, how mentally strong they are and how prepared they are for the next stage in life and that next career. And people like yourself who have gone on, done amazingly well, had your footballing career, now having your media career and your all the other speaking events you do, etc. And I think for me, it's sometimes as sportsmen, women, and athletes, we almost undervalue just what we have to offer. Would you agree?
Well, the thing is, Paul, each to their own. In my opinion, I think some footballers, um, they enjoy the limelight and they put themselves up there as if there's something different, something special. I've always been very, very humble. I'm from a very humble background, from a council estate in Swansea, like many of us brought up on council estates. And, I always try to keep my feet on the ground and I try to be humble. Um, and I had a fantastic career, as you've alluded to. Probably better than most. But I've never changed. I've always been John. And I've always been somebody who was mates with the boys that I grew up with back in Swansea. And whenever I go home, you'll see me having a game of pool with the lads up the local. I'll have a game of darts on a Monday night with the chaps, and that's never wavered from my thinking. And when I was interesting enough, when I was fighting for my life in hospital, it was these guys that were around my bed. You know, don't get me wrong. A lot of ex footballers, players that I played with, they sent messages and they phoned my dad and everything else. But it was these guys that I grew up with. These guys that I stood shoulder to shoulder with as a teenager and walked the streets. These were the people that were there, and these were the people that that cared for me and went out of their way to come to the hospital to show their respects, because people thought I was going to die. You know, people thought I wasn't coming out of that hospital, and as I said, I've always tried to remain that way. Some footballers, they enjoy it, they enjoy the nightlife, you know, all that. That was never really for me. I've always had a young family. Listen, I've enjoyed the night out as much as most.
I think
And
we've all
I
been there. I think
enjoy
that's true.
enjoy a pint, but it wasn't the be
Yeah,
all and end all for me. You know, going out to
yeah,
nightclubs and doing everything else. I had that family environment I could always go home to, and I've got 5 kids. My eldest daughter's
yeah,
touring. She's going around Australia at the minute. She's 21, and I'm a nervous wreck for her because
yeah,
it's the first time she's
yeah,
ever, really properly been out of the country. Um,
yeah.
so I've got 5 kids, you know, and family is my life now. That's all I do is, and it's been quite nice during this pandemic. Obviously, my heart goes out to everybody who's lost their lives, and the NHS are doing an incredible job. It's been awful in terms of that side of things, that people have lost their lives. But in terms of being at home with the children, you know, I've really got to bond with them, especially my little 6-year old who. She's
Yeah.
just coming out of herself and everything. So, you know, I've tried to be as positive as I can during this, this
Yeah,
virus and COVID-19. Um,
yeah.
so, as I said, I've always tried to remain humble, and I've always had time for people.
So one of the things I was going to ask you then, John, because you're talking about, family and, all of the experiences, but actually when you mentioned Celtic Football Club earlier, that for me, being from West Belfast, being, all my friends and family, they're all massive Celtic fans, we have loads of mutual friends and whenever you see it really is like a family, the fan base, and it's just around the world. So you said you'd never been to Scotland. Suddenly you're signing for one of the most well-known clubs in the world. And that walking into that team, along with, Larson and Sutton and Lenny and all those guys, that must have been an amazing experience to be able to bond with them and then go and get to the heights of UEFA Cup finals, etc.
Yeah, well, I have Martin O'Neill to thank a lot for that, because I'd failed 4 medicals before arriving at Celtic. But Martin showed faith in me, and he signed me. And I don't think anything can prepare you for the volume and the size of Celtic in terms of the fan base. And I quickly found out on the day that I signed, there was thousands of people outside the ground welcoming us to the ground. I signed on the same day as Mo Siller and Stevie Guppy. It was like a triple
Hmm.
signing, and to have played with them great players in that great team. I played for great teams. I played for Arsenal. I played for West Ham. I played for some good teams before arriving at Celtic with good players. I played for Wales with Giggs and Bellamy, and these other, Gary Speed, God rest his soul, all these other players. Um, but that team that we forged up there, the team that Martin put together, was a very special team. The UEFA Cup 2003 team, where we took on all comers, and we beat most of them. And it was just a special 5 years in my life, of my career. It was just, I bonded with the fans straight away. I had an affinity with the support. Um, I loved wearing the Celtic shirt. I wore it every time I put it on. It just felt right. It just felt great, and I'm very proud that I've represented such a great football club, because I'll always have it. I'll always have it till the day that I die. And Paul, do you know what? I can't go anywhere in the world today, whether
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
let me just see, whether it's blinking Bermuda, or whether it's the state, or whether
There's
it's a
always a Celtic fan.
caravan park in South Wales, where I used to go as a kid. That's all. I never went
Yeah,
abroad till I was 18 at Arsenal. Um,
yeah.
so I can't go anywhere. Honest to God, I live in Edinburgh now, and Scott Brown told me to come to Edinburgh. He said, John, it's a little bit, less heavy on with the support. And I love the Celtic fans. I love Glasgow. But he was wrong. It's just as bad in Edinburgh. You still can't do Edinburgh. But But no, but as I said, they're a wonderful, wonderful club, and I was very, very
And that's
fortunate,
what
very blessed. I played for
that
such a great.
makes me think, John, because that's all of those players. You're talking about some of the best footballers that have ever played the game. Even my old manager Paul Lambert, and just all the players who've done remarkable things. What would you say that kind of, whether it's the individual or as the team, what were the things that maybe were the highlights, or maybe not necessarily highlights and experiences, but more possible reasons why you think you were so successful?
Well, we had good players. We had fantastic players. That's it. We had a European Cup winner, Paul Lambert. He'd won the European Cup with Borussia Dortmund. We had a Golden Boot winner, Chris Sutton, who went to Chelsea for 10 million, won the Premier League with Henrik Larsson, who was just a phenomenon human being, just scored goals in his sleep. And then we fantastic defences. We had Johan Mialbi, Bobo Baldi, who would just kick their granny to win a tackle, and to stop the ball going in the net. It was a wonderful team. And good looking back, you had young Stilian Petrov at 26. Stoichkov said that Petrov is the greatest ever Bulgarian. What praise that is for
Yeah.
Petrov. We just went out basically. We were a very experienced team, all pretty much internationals, and we believed in each other. We believed in the person sat next to you, and we had some wonderful results both in Europe. Stanley Park was an amazing place to play. East End of Glasgow, under the lights. As I said, we beat everybody that came. Um, and it was a special 5 years. It really was. Martin was brilliant with me, Martin ONeill. He's a great man, Martin. I probably get on better with him now than I ever did when I played him. He comes and plays in my
What
golf.
do you think? What do you think he did? Why was it, in your opinion? Obviously, there's loads of reasons. Could be the reason. Why was it, in your opinion, that Martin O'Neill was able to get the best out of you, best out of Henrik, best out of all these players? What do you think he was doing that allowed him to do that?
I think he had a presence. He had a very good presence, Martin. A good footballing brain. And the one thing Martin did, he allowed you to go and play. And he simplified it. If you did what you're good at, like my assets on the football field were not to run the channels, were not to basically come further too deep from the halfway line. My assets were to be a focal point for the team. When the ball comes into me, I had to get out of that ball. I couldn't let the defender get in front. I had to hold on to that ball for a few seconds to allow the team to come up the pitch so we could settle for
Hmm.
5 minutes or whatever it was. Um, my assets were to head the ball, be aggressive, and ultimately get across people in the box and score goals, and also to be a provider for the other players. Um, and that's what my job was. And I knew my job, and I did my job very well. And if I did my job very well, I'd stay in the team. And I wouldn't always get a pat on the back, but Martin
Yeah.
just expected you to do the things that you did very well. He didn't expect me to run the channel, because he knew I
Yeah.
couldn't do that. So he would never,
Thank goodness
he
for
would,
that, eh?
yeah, exactly, yeah, because I probably would have
Yeah.
lasted about 35 minutes, Paul. But it's like when you got players like Lambert rolling the ball into you and then joining in, and Stan Petrov breaking in behind, a midfield, a goal scorer from midfield, and
Mm.
when you've got the cleverness and the talent of a Henrik Larsson, Henrik, you give him a chance, and it was in the back of the net. His record was just freakish. That's the amount of goals that
And,
he
and and
managed to.
that's what I was really love to ask you about, John, because that's you touched all the way at the very start of this chat was all about Tony Adams, and people would think of Tony Adams as a leader of, like, he's 6'3", aggressive. Don't argue with him because that's what a leader should be like. But I would
Yeah.
almost argue that actually Henrik Larsson was your leader in that team because he was
Well,
your performer.
well,
You
Henrik,
can rely on every week.
yeah, Henrik again was very humble, and he didn't say a lot, Henrik, in terms of being in the dressing room. He never pointed the finger. He never went around the dressing room addressing everybody. He led by example. He went out and he did his job, and he worked his socks off, and he was so consistent. Um, and the one thing I really took from playing with Henrik was he was never satisfied with what he did. He always wanted more, and he always pushed for more. And if he trained well on the Monday, he'd want to train better on Tuesday. If he was brilliant on Tuesday, then he'd want to be better Wednesday. And I remember a particular game. I think we were 3-0 up, and I might have scored one, and I think Henrik had scored two, and it's the 93rd minute, and the ball has gone back to the opposition goalkeeper, and Henrik is running and chasing him down 40, 50 yards. And I just thought to myself, the attitude and the enthusiasm that man's got for the game is just frightening. What that told me was he wanted to get his hat trick, and he
Yeah.
wanted to close the
Yeah.
goalkeeper down. He wanted to win 4-0. He wasn't happy with 3-0, and we
Yeah.
cruised to a 3-0 win.
Yeah.
I was quite prepared. If I'd got two goals, the gaffer could have chucked me off by 60, but I was quite happy I did my job. That was it.
Yeah. That's it. That's how you need to do.
But Henrik was
Yeah.
so, focused, and he just wanted to, he was on it. He was on it 99.9% of the
Yeah.
time. And that's why he's the king, and that's why he's a god here in Glasgow.
Yeah. And I think that
Brilliant.
probably leads me nicely. But that leads me nicely in the because you're talking about Wales and playing with Giggs and Bellamy, and I think it would be remiss of me if I didn't ask your opinion on someone like a Ryan Giggs, because if Henrik Larsson is always looking to improve and a leader by example and just was never satisfied, surely Henrik Larsson's there and Ryan Giggs is here because he's the most successful player ever in the English game.
No, you couldn't. I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't put Henrik there, and I'd put Giggs there. I wouldn't do that. I'd probably put Henrik just ahead of Giggs,
Oh,
personally,
really?
because
Fascinating. Why?
although I played with Ryan for 10 years, I didn't play my club football with him. I played international. I won 51 caps. Ryan won 56 caps. We came right the way through for 10 years
Hmm.
together. Our front three
Hmm.
was Giggs, Hartson, Bellamy, under Mark Hughes for 5 years. You know, um, but having played with Henrik and having worked with him on a daily basis, he was just, the best player I've ever played with. Him and Dennis
Wow.
Bergkamp, very difficult to
Yeah.
split. Bergkamp was an
Yeah.
incredible talent as well. Um, but Ryan Giggs, again, the most decorated footballer in British history. Something like 30 odd trophies at Manchester United, 15
Yeah.
league titles,
Frightening.
two Champions
Frightening.
Leagues, what FA Cups, League Cups. Um, and again, just incredible. Pace, guile, consistency of a career, having 20 odd years at Man United, the most appearance record holder for United. All them wonderful greats that have played there for that unbelievable football club. Sir Alex Ferguson's, Sir Alex absolutely loved him. He sold everybody.
Loved
He
him.
didn't get rid of Ryan Giggs, did he? He sold
Yeah.
every.
Son of. He was the original son of,
I
wasn't
know, you're not wrong. That was clever two times as well. But Giggsy was incredible. I was very proud again to represent my country and play with Ryan Giggs, because again he's so iconic. He's so
he? Yeah.
famous in Wales. And strangely enough, he never came to play in many of the friendlies, and we'd have about 25,000. But when he did come and play, there'd be 75,000 people at the Millennium Stadium. That's how much a difference
Yeah.
that Ryan Giggs
Yeah.
made when he came and played for
Yeah.
Wales. And he's now doing a great job as well as the manager. They just
Yeah.
qualified, for the Euros, which will now take place in 2021. So we're all looking forward to that. And Ryan's done a great job there.
John, listen, this just is so enjoyable, man. I wish we could be doing this, over a pint somewhere or in a pub or whatever. But honestly, I loved having you here. I know that you've done so many things already today, so I'm not going to keep you any longer. I just really wanted to thank you. So, but just before I let you go, I will just throw it out again. If you have enjoyed these series of McVeigh Beats, the only reason why I'm doing this is just trying to raise a few pounds for the NHS and do my bit. by trying to entertain and give a little bit of light relief as well as giving a little bit of money towards the NHS and the remarkable job that they're doing. So if you have enjoyed it, please go on to any of my profiles on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and just donate whatever you can, or keep going to Just Giving page, type in McVeigh Meets, and go from there. But John, can I just say I really owe you a huge debt of gratitude because I think you've been so unbelievably entertaining, honest, open, and I've just loved spending the last nearly 60 minutes with you. So really, really appreciate it.
Paul, you're more than welcome, mate. All the best. It's good
Top
to
man.
catch up
Top
with you
man.
again. Take care, mate.
Top
Bye
man.
bye.
Stay
Bye bye.
safe. Stay safe. Thanks very much. See ya.
Bye.